Welcome to the Bike Life Podcast by Warmshowers Foundation, where we will be sharing knowledge, experience, tools, and stories of touring cyclists and hosts from around the world. I'm Tara Lee, the woman behind the scenes at Warmshowers Foundation, the leading platform for cyclists looking for hosts and to connect with a passionate international community. Find out more by visiting us at Warmshowers.org. Now, on to the show. Today we have Dan Schmitt with us, and we're going to talk about the Kontiki Dream, a 4,800-mile journey across America where he learned that human connections happen more easily when you start by being nice. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Tarverly. It's great to be here with you.
I love that. There's so many parts of your journey that are so interesting. And to start with this concept that human connections happen more easily when you're nice is just such a beautiful statement.
Well, it's so true too. And it's not just on a bike ride, but it's every single day, getting on an elevator, passing somebody on the street, just that first initial reaching out or connection with somebody first opens up a whole new possibility with other people, and especially on a bike ride when you're solo for 4,800 miles. It's a great principle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's quite a journey. I want to hear more about Kontiki, but first I want to hear, how did this start? Where did you come up with this idea? What was the inspiration for this 4,800-mile journey?
So I've always ridden my bike since high school, until today. And so I've always loved being on a bike. And about 26 years ago, I went to a Christmas party. It's one of those Christmas parties where you get a gift and someone can steal it, and a dirty Santa party, or they have all kinds of names. But I left with this little book, this little paperback book called Kontiki, and I wasn't really familiar with the Kontiki story, but it's a 1947 raft trip by Tor Heyerdahl and 5 others, where they sailed. They built a balsa raft, and his premise was that the Polynesian islands had been settled by Peruvians, where everybody was saying that those islands had been settled by natives from the east. And so nobody would buy his theory, so he set out to prove it. And it was just this little tiny paperback, but I read it, and basically, to make a long story short, they survived this 101-day journey. They made it to the Polynesian islands. It was one of the most incredible adventures I'd ever read. And from that moment on, Kontiki became kind of a special symbol for me in terms of kind of adventure in my life. And I wanted to set out on my own Kontiki journey one day. And so I certainly didn't want to build a balsa raft and fight sharks for 101 days, but I do ride a bicycle, so I could do a similar, type of adventure with that kind of, distance and time. And so I set out to cross the U.S. on my bike, solo and unsupported, a bikepacking trip, because I wanted it to be kind of a no safety net experience, like they had. And so that's the Kontiki explanation or inspiration. And I just held on to that for until I retired last year, and then it was, then it became possible, and so it was like, okay, it's time for Kontiki to ride.
It was go time. Do you still
Yes,
have the
it
book?
was go time.
Do
Definitely
you still
go
have
time.
the book?
I do. I do. I have the book. I have that original book, but I also, since then, I have acquired a first edition copy that I read probably once or twice, every couple of years. So it's a very special book to me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, what like what must have happened, like the transformation that happened in you just by reading a book, knowing that, how we can overcome adversity, right? Like challenging ourselves to overcome adversity. And it also means like setting aside the things that we would normally worry about, right? Setting
Right.
aside the things that we would normally worry about so we can focus just on the journey. That
Exactly.
requires full presence, full
Exactly.
presence.
And I had a custom frame bag made for my bike, and I had the Kontiki symbol that they had on their sale on my bag, and so it was truly, like every time I looked at my bike, I thought of those guys and the hardships that they endured, and compared to them, my hardships were pretty easy to endure, I think.
Yeah. Is that book available on like regular search
Oh yeah.
platforms? Like, yeah,
Oh
okay.
yeah.
So we'll search and put a link in
Yeah.
the show notes because for
Right.
something to inspire you that much, many of us want to
Right.
read it now too.
And there's two movies. There was a 1949, I think it was 1949 movie that won the Academy Award. Um,
Mm.
uh, it was a documentary, so I think it won the best documentary. But then since then, there's been an actual um, movie made on the adventure on the raft, and but both of them are great to watch. But nothing beats the book.
Yeah, I love it. So, had you done any long tour cycling before this? Even though you've been an active
Right.
cyclist, but you hadn't
Right.
done any touring.
Uh, first time. First time.
Wow, first
So
time.
first time, figure might as well start big.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of single day rides that are long, or endurance events and things like that. But until I decided to do this, I'd never done like multi-night
Right.
trips, and so I had a lot to learn. I had a lot of research to do, and I talked to people, and a lot of YouTube videos,
Mm,
a lot of podcasts. I listened to Bike Life,
mm.
and just searching for the best um, information I could to help prepare me.
So, what would you tell people that are the most important things to do to prepare themselves if they haven't done a journey before and they've planned a similar type trip?
Right. Well, I think the first thing is to first tell people you're going to do it, because that creates kind of reality in it. It creates accountability, and once I started telling people I was going to do it, you know, I knew I was going to do it. And then from there, there's a lot of resources, but I think YouTube videos on bike packing setup, or bike setup, and the bags and the equipment, um, adventure cycling, uh, uh, yeah, is a great organization. Um, I acquired their maps. Um, I had hosted a number of, um, and this is way before Warm Showers, but living on the Trans Am route, um, we had hosted quite a number of Trans Am cyclists, coming through our town over the years, and so talking with them and learning from them, but was a big resource. But
Hmm.
there's just I talked to two or three other riders that had done this, that I had located from friends of friends, and just talking with them about their journey and their experience really helped as well.
Hmm.
But it's remarkable how much you can learn prior to setting out on a journey like this, that that ultimately helps you feel like you're really prepared. And I did feel like I had really prepared well, and that I hadn't left. I mean, I learned a lot on the journey, but through those videos and
Yeah.
conversations and resources, there's
You
really
were
a lot you
prepared.
can.
Yeah,
I
you were
was.
prepared like on equipment, on gear, on
Right.
on the bike. And how did you choose the route that you wanted to take?
So I rode the Northern Tier, which is the Adventure Cycling Association. It's one of their routes. Um, I am originally from Minnesota, and that route goes right through Minnesota, and so all my cousins and are up in that area. And so it was about the halfway point, almost the halfway point. And so I thought, well, that's, it would be great to ride one through my hometown, and which I did, and then spend some time with my family. And and I thought it might be a little cooler during the summer, because I went during the summer and I thought, maybe the northern part of the United States would be cooler than the middle or the southern part. And
So
I think it was.
So you were well equipped, you had your route planned, and like, what was the first week like?
The first week was quite a surprise, because you start in Anacortes, Washington, and within the first week you hit 4 significant mountain passes, in the Cascade Mountains, and I had climbing Washington Pass, which is just a tad under 6,000 feet. I had there was about 8 to 10 feet of snow, on top of that mountain. The road was clear, but it was cold, and it was a long climb. And the second, and then the second pass right after that was about 5,500 feet. But there were 4 passes in a row that were snowy, a lot of climbing, and it was a kind of a wake-up call. My wife followed me in a rental car for the first day and a half, just to make sure that I hadn't forgotten my tent, or that the bike was working. And then so when her taillights went around the corner leaving me, it's like, okay, it's on. But it was a tough first week, but it was just feeling the joy of finally being on this journey that I dreamed of for so long was just a feeling like I've never had. Just so exhilarating.
I can feel it in you. Feels like it was special. Even when it was hard, it was super special.
Right. And there are hard moments. There was a lot of wind. I had some incredible storms that I had to get through. A lot of rain in Montana.
I was going to say, what was the craziest storm that you experienced?
That's an easy question to answer. I was on Pelican Lake in Minnesota, and I'd snapped a picture of a incredible sunset, just beautiful blue skies, and crawled in my tent. And at 11:30, I was awoken by just almost like hurricane-like conditions, and my tent was the wind was so strong, my tent was right on top of me. I had water gushing in from every way. It lasted about 25 minutes. I laid face down holding my tent in both hands, because I thought if I let go, this tent's going to roll. But it was just a remarkable storm. And when it finally subsided, there were trees down everywhere. An hour later, there was a fire department just outside my tent, because trees had fallen all over the place, including across the road. My tent poles were bent. My tent cords were snapped. It was quite something. It was quite something. But I laid there holding this tent down, thinking, this is crazy, but this is a rich experience. Yeah. And I actually thought that it was like, this is, I'm going to remember this,
the rest of your life,
the rest of my life,
the rest of your life.
So, and that's what it's all about. It's just all about getting through those moments and just embracing, whatever comes your way.
Yeah. How did your family feel about it? So you saw them about the halfway point, but how were they reacting to this?
They were, they knew I was going to go, because I've got 4 kids, and they've heard about it. They've heard me talking about this my whole life, or their whole lives. And so it was no surprise to them that I was going. And my wife too was very supportive. She knew that this is something that was inside of me that I needed to do. But my kids taught me how to post on Instagram. And so
Which I
that was
love, by the way. That's so great.
a
Thank you,
big part of the
kids.
journey. Yeah, I posted every day, and which was not easy. Sometimes, that was maybe the most challenging part of my day was sitting up at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, trying to find decent internet connection so I could make my post. But they really enjoyed seeing where I was and what was going on. And it was a fundraiser. I was raising money for a very meaningful organization here in Richmond. That's very dear to me. And so I think the posting and really helped, because the followers kept growing, and I think the posts were predominantly inspirational, and they were positive, and they were about the people I met, and so I think people really enjoyed the. I got a lot of comments about thank you for taking us along on the journey with you, and I think that really helped the fundraising in the end.
Yes, and I'm sure your family, I don't know if you checked in with them other ways. I'm sure you did.
Oh, I
But
did.
yeah, I was going to say, but seeing your journey live firsthand, like that
Yeah,
is
right.
special.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
And
So,
I've got stories for a lifetime. Just the people you come across are just remarkable, and the kindness and the generosity. I'll just, some of the scenery may fade, from my mind over the years, but some of the interactions with these remarkable people, I think, will stay, etched in my memory forever.
tell us some of the most memorable humans that you interacted with.
Okay. Well, I mean, I could go on for hours on that, but I'll keep it short. I was in Dutton, Montana, one night on a Sunday evening. I'd been riding all day in the rain, and in the West, that the route takes you through really small towns, and so I rode into Dutton, Montana, and hoping to find that one little restaurant or bar open, so I can get something to eat. But come to find out, nothing was open in this tiny little town, and I had one pack of crackers, and so I found a park and I set up my tent, and I thought there's got to be something in this town I can find, and so I get back on my bike and I ride around town. There was nothing, nobody on the streets, no vehicles, and finally one little truck comes puttering through town, and I waved him down. I said, "Is there any place to find convenience store, a restaurant, anything?" And he said, "Not within 30, 40 miles of here." And he said, "I've got a bottle of water if you'd like it." And I said, "I'll take it." So I went and finished putting up my tent. 10 minutes later, that same little truck comes puttering into the parking lot, and the same guy gets out. He's got an armful of food. His wife had made me sandwiches. There's homemade pie, drinks, fruit. And he came up to me. He said, "You're not going to be hungry in Dutton, Montana tonight."
Wow.
And he sat down with me, and he was just the nicest guy. And so, that was an incredible night. And then one more quick story. I was in Cumberland, Wisconsin, one morning in my tent. It was pouring down rain, and I finally decided it's 10:30. I've got to get going. I can't stay in my tent all day. And so I finally got rolling, and I found a little restaurant in Cumberland, and I thought I'm going to go in and get 2 donuts and a cup of coffee and keep going. I went in, and there was this little man sitting eating breakfast by himself, and he waved me over, and he said, "Would you like to have breakfast with me?" And I said, "Of course." And so I sat down, and he was truly one of the most remarkable people I've ever met in my life. And he was 4 days shy of his 100th birthday.
Wow.
He had stormed the beaches of Normandy. He was still driving an hour and a half, 3 times a week to St. Paul, Minnesota, to run 2 nonprofits. He told me about his three real estate career, or three careers, one in farming, real estate, and railroads. He was funny. He had so much wisdom, and I thought I was going in for just a quick 2 minutes in and out. I ended up sitting with him for 3.5 hours, because once I sat down with him, I thought, this is why I'm on this trip.
This is it. That was the purpose.
Yeah. This is why I'm on this trip.
Yeah.
And his name was George, and I'll never forget him. He was just a remarkable person. But there's 100 of those stories,
right,
along the way. And I think when you travel solo, I think those, a lot of people were surprised I was going to go alone. But I'm really happy that I did, because I think the quality of my interactions were that much deeper. Being with without a group or another person.
So incredible to hear your stories. Even just those two examples that you gave are absolutely amazing. I mean, I can only imagine how much your life has shifted since. Like,
right.
What has it been like to come back home and have experienced this level of humanity, right? And human connection.
Right.
I mean, wow,
right.
I'm impacted by just hearing your story, so I can't imagine how you're impacted. And I hear a lot of stories and
right.
about touring,
right.
but yours is, I mean, those are profound experiences.
They are, and then, I didn't even discover or find warm showers until I started to get towards the Midwest or the East. I think Traverse City, Michigan was my first warm shower stop. And that was just incredible experience. And I used warm showers, I think 7 times from that point to my destination in Bar Harbor, and just had the most incredible experiences with kind people. And since then, when I got back, I thought, I'm going to be a host. And so I've already had several great experiences. I had a couple this past weekend that were doing they call it the Four Corners ride. So they're doing a 12,000-mile journey, or just literally around the U.S. And we just had the greatest time. They arrived Saturday. They spent Saturday night with us, but just hearing their stories, and I had such an appreciation for the people I stayed with, and the generosity they showed me, that it's just so easy to return that now, and just invite almost anybody and everybody I can into our home to celebrate what they're doing.
I love it, Dan. Are you going to do another tour? I guess that's my question. Like, what's?
I'm sure I will.
Yeah,
I'm sure I will. It's I do a lot of bike packing with my dog. So I've got an 85-pound golden retriever that Cooper and I go on these bike packing trips.
And how do you carry Cooper?
I've got a Burley bike trailer.
Okay.
And he rides in it probably 30% of the time, and he runs the rest of the time. And he just we started doing this when he was just a puppy, so he's got it down pat. He when he gets tired, he just comes over and he jumps in, and I haul him for a mile, and he starts barking like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Yeah. But yeah, so I definitely will do future bike packing trips. I have the equipment and now the knowledge is how to set up my bike, but I also have experienced the pure joy of traveling that way, and experiencing a place from the seat of a bike, and having really quality human interaction. And so I laid my tent most nights thinking, just looking at the top of my tent and just thinking, this is how I want to live, in my retirement years.
I love it so much. Thank you, Dan. I've been excited to talk to you because, you sent me a beautiful overview of your trip before we met. And then when I first met you, I felt like, wow, this has been a profound impact on you. And you've now brought that impact to me, and to all of our listeners are getting to experience your joy through sharing this story. So thank you for taking the time to come on the show. It's so amazing to hear your experience.
Thank you, Tarverly, for having me, and for what you're doing to share these types of experiences with others, because what you're doing, maybe I can inspire somebody a little bit, but I've been inspired by some of the other people you've talked with. So what you're doing with Bike Life is really valuable.
Well, thank you for telling me that. Sometimes we don't hear that side of the impact we make because we're busy and we're keeping the organization going. And this is definitely a part of labor of love of what we do at Warm Showers, is really just, and I like it. Like, for me as a human, I love to hear the stories. So it's truly, the pleasure is all mine.
Great. Well,
thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Tarverly.
And for everyone listening, we're going to put the link to the book in the show notes, and we're going to put Dan's Instagram in the show notes so you can go check out how his journey went and stay in touch. And if you loved the show, please make sure you share it, because we know that others would enjoy listening and being inspired as well. So thanks for listening, and thank you again, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed making it. Wherever you are listening, please leave us a rating and a review, as it helps us reach more cyclists and hosts around the world. Visit us at Warmshowers.org to become a part of our community, or on Instagram at Warmshowers_org. If you would like to be a guest on the show or submit a question, please make sure to email us at podcast@warmshowers.org.